What's going on, y'all? How's everybody doing? I'm going to let y'all come on in here and we'll go ahead and get started on today's topic. Hope everybody is doing well on this Thursday night. We have a few things we need to talk about. Again, as I've said the last couple weeks, I'm not going to be on here forever, but I'll be on here for enough time for me to get into the topic for today. So give me 1 second. I'm just going to set a few things up here. I got some notes that I took as well, too. For those of you all who are going to stick here for a while with me and go through this topic. So give me 1 second as I get all this other stuff set up and we can move on from there. While I'm getting all this together, how's everybody doing tonight? What have you been up to this week? What you got going on this weekend? Let me know how you're doing. Tap in with me, check in with me, and let me know. In the meantime, let me do this too. I'm going to go ahead and share my Cash App for anybody who wants to send me something in the meantime while we are going through this entire broadcast. So give me 1 second here. And I'm going to be honest, at first I wasn't sure if I was going to, or what I was going to be doing because it was so close between that and the yo, 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 homie, yo trope. But because it was so close, I will say, I think it might be a good idea for me to, still do a video on that topic because it seemed to be pretty popular. And it was pretty close to this topic. So like I said, at first I wasn't really sure what was going to win, but this topic did win. And it makes sense because this is something that is, still really being discussed. A lot of people are still talking about things related to Charlie Kirk, and more things are developing as we're learning new things about kind of what went down. So yeah, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. That's the point here. But for those of you all who do not know, for today's topic, we're going to be talking about the protection of the racist legacy of Charlie Kirk, exposing the racist hero agenda, because that's essentially what's kind of happening right now. We need to kind of get into it and talk about it. So I'm just kind of finishing up one thing here, and then we are going to go ahead and get started. But again, I'm letting people kind of get into the space before I really, really get into the topic. Hold on 1 second here. All right. So let's go ahead and get into it. Like I said, today's topic, protecting the racist legacy of Charlie Kirk, exposing the racist hero agenda. Now, I want to get into, sorry, I just heard a bunch of noises. Anyway, I want to get into, what this racist hero agenda is before I get into anything else. Now, one thing I've talked about before in the past is what, many would call revisionist history. And that's when the white supremacist likes to take things that have happened historically and they try to change things. So whenever Black people do something that's positive, they try to change it to make it seem like we didn't do that thing. Or whenever their people do something negative, they like to change that part as if that didn't happen either. So that's a big part of revisionist history. And then saying that lie over and over again till it's something that's commonly believed. This is something that a lot of these racists will do. They'll try to, alter facts and then say the altered facts over and over again till they convince somebody who's naive to just believe the altered facts that they just stated over and over and over again, like a damn parrot. So with that being said, the racist hero agenda is somewhat in that category. And what I mean by that is, it's this thing where they try to take somebody who is a known racist, because a lot of these people in the dominant society, they don't really have like heroes who actually are not degenerates. They don't really have like heroes in their society like that. So what they have to do is take one who actually was racist and then try to rebrand them as if they're somebody different than who they were, usually while they were alive. So they're doing the same thing with Charlie Kirk. This man was a racist man. And I think that it's almost not even debatable at this point, to be quite honest with you. I mean, you can literally go back to all the things that he said and the things that he has done, and you can see that this was a very racist man. I mean, there's no question about it at this point. So with that being said, they know that this is a man who really doesn't have that much to stand on. And as a result, they're trying to make his legacy seem like he did something that was positive and productive for society when he didn't. And on top of that, too, he really wasn't about anything. Like, and we'll get into all of that. So for those of y'all who are watching this and you don't know who Charlie Kirk is, I've said this before on a previous video. He is an author. He considers himself to be an activist, but that's extremely questionable. And he was right wing. You know, he was somebody who had a lot of conservative values, and he had a lot of rhetoric that he spit. He was what I would call the intellectual white supremacist. I call him an intellectual white supremacist because he likes to try to intellectualize his racism. There's a couple other, you know, intellectual white supremacists that are out there kind of doing the same thing that he is doing as well in different platforms and different spaces. But he falls into that category, just as a brief summary of who he is and the type of stuff that you typically will see from him. Now, one of the things that people need to understand, if it's not clear at this point, and if you've been living under a rock and somehow you didn't hear the shit, is that Charlie Kirk was offed by a white on white crime. And I want to emphasize that because they'll talk about black on black crime, and I've talked about how this is a myth. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to use these mythological terms in the case of us trying to emulate the way that they talk in their vernacular. So this is a, for all practical purposes, white on white crime because black people had absolutely no involvement in what happened to Charlie Kirk whatsoever, you know? And what's funny to me about this is this whole situation is just straight up just it's ghetto. It's ghetto. That's the best way to put it. It's some ghetto shit. And the reason why I say that is because if you look at it, this is like a white supremacist inner beef, like a suspected white supremacist off another suspected white supremacist. Like it's one of the most poetic things that could have possibly happened. And this is a suspected white supremacist who literally has spent his entire career making a killing and a platform off of denigrating us, talking about how degenerate we are, our crimes and all this other stuff, only for him to be taken out by his own community, not even us. And there's literally factually nothing that they can say that can prove that we were a part of this. So that's the thing that's interesting about this to me. Now, one of the things that I find even more interesting, and I'm going to talk about y'all's President Trump. You know, I think I told y'all this before. I'm not a fan of the right. I'm not a fan of the left. I'm not a fan of Trump. And I wasn't a fan of Kamala Harris. I wasn't a fan of either one of these people. All right. So I'm not one of those people where it's like, oh, I don't like the Democrats, so now I love the Republicans. That's what a lot of these like kind of conservative Sambos like to do. That's not my jam. I'm all about whatever helps black people. Anyway, without going off on a tangent, my point here is that y'all's boy Trump was kind of on some bullshit as well, too. And it's interesting to me because when we talk about this suspected white supremacist who offed Charlie Kirk, it's so funny how he doesn't really say that much about him and propping him up as somebody who is a violent degenerate. But look at how they did my man who was in my neck of the woods, that being like kind of like around the Charlotte area. You know, think about the black man who was mentally ill who had taken out a white woman, like a white woman who I believe was European. You know, there was this thing where, you know, Trump was propping him up. I think his name was DeCarlos Brown as this degenerate murderer and all this other stuff. But you don't see that happening with this guy who took out Charlie Kirk. Like you just don't really hear him saying that. And then his monkey ass decided that he was going to focus on creating a national holiday for Charlie Kirk, you know, on his birthday, that being October the 14th. One of the things that I find really ironic about that, y'all, is that George Floyd, somebody who Charlie Kirk denigrated quite often, had the same birthday as him. And there was no holiday in his honor, despite the fact that he was taken out. And a lot of people are going to try to make the argument that he was somebody significant. But the reality is that Charlie Kirk is not anybody significant. Think about it. Who really was he? He was really a commoner, if you think about it. He was an elevated commoner. He was not a politician. He was not a lawyer. He was not a judge. He was not any type of lawmaker. He didn't do anything judicial. And really, he wasn't even really a true activist. I'm going to be honest with you. So he was really at best a glorified podcaster. And again, a civilian, just like George Floyd. And he was somebody whose career was all about him getting his rocks off by debating a bunch of kids and college students using fake intellectualism. Like that was what he was all about. And then using racist talking points. So really, to be quite honest with you, he was not really that much different than a George Floyd. He didn't really do anything that was important and productive for society. He just simply went around spewing hateful views and then becoming popular from doing that because he was garnering the attention from people who also were either suspected white supremacists themselves, Sambos, or Tethers. And it really was just as simple as that. But my point in all this is that Black people just have no involvement, like literally no involvement in this whatsoever. But they are trying their damnedest to involve us in something that has nothing to do with us whatsoever. So, I just find all of this very interesting because, it's this thing of trying to, them, especially Trump and them, trying to rebrand, his legacy, which isn't much of anything already. But they're trying to rebrand it and reframe it as if he was a good person. And this was a horrible human being that we're talking about. This was a racist human being, a horrible human being, and a man who really did nothing but denigrate a group of people who ultimately he lied on and talked negatively about in a way that we didn't deserve. And on top of that, too, he was taken out by his own community. That's the ironic thing about all this. So but going back to Trump, it's interesting to me that not only is he making a holiday, for this man, but it's also where they're trying to do this kind of like reprimanding thing where either if somebody celebrates or even simply says that they're against Charlie Kirk, then it's a bunch of these racist male supremacists who are going out there, trying to get, people fired from their jobs, expelled from schools, and all this other stuff. And, I'm looking at all of this and I'm saying, not only are they trying to, legitimize his legacy, they're also trying to silence people who are speaking about, what is going on. It's interesting to me because we talk about all this shit about free speech and all that. But, he was free to spew his racist hate. He was free to say all the things that he said about the Black community. He was free to create a platform that allowed him to make money off the backs of saying racist things about us. But Black people are not free to be angry. We're not free to respond. We're not free to say that we don't fuck with him, life or death. Like, we're not free to say that. And again, I made it very clear to people. I did not go around celebrating his death. That's just not something that I would really do. That's not really in me. I don't really go around and celebrate white supremacists having wars with each other. Like, that's really what was going on. I don't really I don't care one way or another. Let's see. Rye said I did. Listen, I didn't. But here's the thing. I'm not necessarily upset at people who did. And the reason why I'm not upset is because I believe the people who are celebrating are showing some form of anger. That's anger and basically saying you sat there, made a career out of denigrating us. And now that you're dead, people are rejoicing because they believe that the world is a better place without another vile white supremacist walking around spewing anti-Black talking points about a community that he does not belong to. So I think that a lot of the celebratoriness is just people being angry, to be quite honest with you. So, at most you'll hear me say, I think it's ironic, because it is quite ironic to look at what he said and what he's done and to look at what ended up happening. I do think it's very ironic, but you don't see me out here celebrating. But regardless, if people are going around celebrating, that's them using their free speech. They're using their free speech to express their anger and frustration with the way this man basically carried himself while he was on this earth. Now, another thing I told you all before, and I said this in the previous video that I did about Charlie Kirk, you all better pray that every suspected white supremacist is like Charlie Kirk. And the reality is that you better pray that everyone is like that, because you don't want a lot of these covert white supremacists to walk around and nobody is identifying the little, slick shit that they try to do that's anti-Black. You want somebody who's going to let you know exactly who they are so you can call them out. because there are a lot of Charlie Kirks walking around. I guarantee you it's like a drop in the bucket. You know, you may it's like having a house full of like roaches. You know, you may kill one, but there's a whole bunch of other ones that are somewhere under some type of rug or in a corner, a dark corner somewhere or some shit, and they're still running around. You kill one, and then there's going to be a whole bunch of others that are there. So that's the thing. These suspected white supremacists are a dime in a dozen. But my point in saying all this is that, you know, you need to understand that, you know, Charlie Kirk is somebody who is just he was one of many, and he told you who he was. I actually can respect, you know, the idea that at least he was honest about who he was and the way he saw things. That way we can have a straightforward reaction to not just his death, but to his legacy, and calling him out saying, hey, this man was racist and we have all this proof to show it. He made it clear who he was. So nobody should be mad that we're saying that this was him, you know? So I think that that's what it ends up coming down to. But all this madness about free speech this, free speech that, and then folks are losing their jobs or not being able to go to school and shit because they talked about a man who was racist, and this man got no repercussions for going around talking negatively about us, our icons, and our culture. No, man, like that's bullshit. Now let's talk about these HBCUs, because there's a lot of shit that's going on with the HBCUs. I think Rye had commented again, talk about black violence and killed by white violence. That's what I'm saying. He talked about all this black on black crime shit, and then he got taken out by white on white crime. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, so HBCUs were being threatened, you know, and it's funny because they were being threatened, and these kind of white institutions were being coddled, you know. A lot of HBCUs, they had to cancel classes and protect the students and do all this other stuff. And it's like, how the fuck did black people get involved in this again? Because, you know, last time I checked, there was a white on white crime. So it had nothing to do with anybody who was black whatsoever. So the threats to HBCUs, that's how you know that white supremacy is rampant, because if it was a white on white crime issue, then there's no reason why we would need to be dragged into it. But since they are trying to drag us into it, let's go through all of it. That's my thing. So here's the thing, you know, these HBCUs, they are supposedly supposed to be spaces or safe spaces for a lot of black people to go to, right? You know, we know that there's like issues and problems, but that's not the point for today. You know, the thing is that, you know, they're constantly undermined and underfunded and demonized and all this other stuff. And and the thing about it is that, you know, these types of institutions are, you know, are going to be treated differently than these white institutions, you know. And one of the things that I kind of realized in this situation was they're showing like a bit of their hypocrisy, because you have these HBCUs where recently they had this story where I think it was TSU. They had this like fake Charlie Kirk wannabe dude, like this Charlie Kirk doppelganger guy. And he was going around trying to debate black students and stuff like that. And they ran him the hell up out of there and shit. And they did it in a way that actually was constructive too, which I definitely respect the students for even like, you know, doing that and refusing to sit there and listen to that gibberish. But my point in saying that there's hypocrisy is, you know, with white institutions, we couldn't go that. We couldn't go to Yale. We couldn't go to Princeton. We couldn't go to any of these PWIs and then start doing that, or like schools that just predominantly have white people. Imagine one of us going to Utah and saying, let's have a debate. We wouldn't be able to do that. So there's like a double standard with it. And then they can just, you know, use them as soft targets, even when, again, black people have no involvement in any of their issues. So it's interesting how they're targeting like HBCUs in any way, when in reality, like, you know, we have no involvement in this shit. So the thing is that, you know, it almost shows how people, the dominant society, they turn a blind eye even to other things that are going on with other communities. Because think about it, like, you know, you have it where these HBCUs are under attack. You don't really hear much in the media about it. You know, we have to kind of find out word of mouth. You know, you don't hear, you know, any like legislation or anything being done to protect these students and whatnot, outside of the universities themselves trying to make sure they keep themselves from a liability and protect the students, I guess. but we're getting all types of coverage about a man who was basically picked off by another, suspected white supremacist. That's getting way more attention than these black colleges that are being threatened for literally no reason. It's it's almost like black colleges are being targeted via racism for just existing. And to me, like, I look at that and I'm like, it's funny how anytime, even like, they could sit there and say that we did this, we did that, and make a big spectacle out of it, but even when we have no involvement in things, they're targeting us any way that they can. Because, like, why are HBCUs involved in this process at all? So that's kind of what I saw from that. Now I want to kind of go back to this whole free speech thing that I talked about. So they try to treat Charlie Kirk like he's this national hero, like he's a martyr. He's a martyr for free speech. They want to take like his words and his phrases and the things that he said is his talking points, and instead of saying it like it is and saying that what he said was hateful and racist, they're trying to make it seem like it's polarizing, and maybe he was a figure who was misunderstood. Maybe he was somebody who, people just totally didn't get. Like, it's like, oh, well, these people had opinions on it and those people had opinions on it. Like, it was politicized. But here's the thing. Racism is not political. Like, I need to make that clear. Matter of fact, I'm going to do an Umar for y'all. Sometimes, every now and again, I do an Umar. Racism is not political. Racism is not political. Racism is not fucking political. Like, they keep doing this shit to try to make it seem like, oh, these were like political views and all that. And even if you go on damn Chat GPT, because I even tried to like research some things as well too, using it, like they even was going on saying like, oh yeah, we don't get into political things. Bitch, this is not political. Like, this is something that is about racism. Racism is not political. It is not political whatsoever. So that's kind of what was going on there. But they're trying to make him seem like he's like some type of icon, like almost like a civil rights icon. But my thing is, let's not get it twisted. This is the same man who disrespected Dr. King. I mean, he dismissed systemic racism. He repeatedly attacked black movements. Regardless of what you think about the Black Lives Matter movement, the idea of Black Lives Mattering was what he was going against, regardless of what you think. And, meanwhile, all this is going on and students are getting kicked out of school for making jokes like online and making jokes in person and stuff like that. And, the thing that's funny to me about that is let's just compare it to white students. There are a lot of white students that will literally go to school and they'll put on blackface and they'll take pictures of it, or they'll have these demeaning pictures where, like, I don't know if you've seen it before, but like it'll be like them and like it'll be a black person, and then the black person will be dressed up as some type of racist slave play type of thing. Like, I saw one that was like a guy, he was dressed up like in cotton or some shit, and he said, oh, I picked him for prom, and it was like a white girl and it was like a black dude, and it was like picking cotton, that type of thing. So like they had that type of thing going on as well too. It was something like that. My point is that they like to do these little like racist imagery like jokes sometimes online, and you don't really see anything happening to these kids or these adults who even make jokes. Like, you don't see anything happening to them whatsoever, and they get to just kind of move on with life. And then if you bring the shit up years later, it's like, oh, I'm a different person and all this other stuff. But the black person, they even say anything remotely bad, then they have to lose their whole livelihood. And this recently kind of happened to, I think the student's name was Devion. I think that's how you say his name, Devion Canty Jr. And Devion was a student at Texas State, and he was kind of mocking the deaf and whatnot. He was like, acting like he had got shot and all this other stuff, and he got kicked out. Now, what's interesting about that is Devion actually has a GoFundMe that's out that people have been donating to. So people have been basically giving him money. And I think he was trying to raise 9,000 or something like that. And I think he raised 7,000. I don't know what it's at now at this point. Maybe he hit it, maybe he didn't. I'm not sure. I haven't been keeping up with it. But he's been raising money, since he got kicked out. And so some people have a problem with that. Even they're like, well, he was making jokes. But my thing is, if a kid gets, or I guess a young man gets kicked out of college for mocking someone's death, and he wants to start a GoFundMe because he was kicked out of school and whatnot, that should be okay if Shiloh Hendricks, a European white woman, can shoot out a hard ER on a baby who's black, right? And get almost millions of dollars. Like, my point in saying all that is, if she can do that, then there shouldn't be anything wrong with Devion having his, his GoFundMe. So to me, I hear that and I see like a lot of the hypocrisy. What's good, Koulas? What's good, Devon? How you doing? So Devon, today we're talking about the racist legacy of Charlie Kirk and how they're trying to basically make him a racist hero. So anyway, my point is, you can see the hypocrisy. A black student, makes fun of his death and he's kicked out. But again, these little white kids can go around. They do it all the time in these little small towns, and sometimes not small towns. And, they have blackface on, they're making jokes out of it and all types of stuff. And it gets sensationalized a little bit because our community points it out. But if we didn't point it out, they would just let that stuff fly. I'm telling you, I've went to school with kids who are just like some of these people who are doing this type of thing. And they get no repercussions, no slaps on the wrist, and they get to just move on and just be different people in life later down the line. So I already know what the deal is. It's nothing but a bunch of hypocrisy, racist hypocrisy at that. So yeah, that's the bottom line about that and the free speech thing. There's a lot of hypocrisy around it. A lot of us, we can't go around and then be free with how we speak about, that community, or how we speak about, a lot of the other things and agendas that we see. We can't, freely speak about, when somebody dies, or show anger, show frustration. We can't do any of that type of stuff, because then that's going to be a thing where people are losing their jobs, they're losing their livelihood, they're losing their ability to attend school. And it's all over again, a bunch of hypocrisy, because these white students, they could do all these same things and nothing would happen to them. There's times where there's racist jokes just flying around on social media and nobody says anything, and they just stay on there for years and years and years. Then when this white person wants to go and they want to do something different with their lives, they want to remove the shit like it never existed. Or if somebody uncovers it, they like to say, again, they're a different person and all this other stuff. But y'all need to understand, once a racist, always a damn racist, and you need to treat them like such. If we have to sit around and have to be cool with you doing that and then to act like that didn't happen, then you should be cool with being a racist because you chose to have that action, and you need to own what you did. Charlie Kirk said a lot of problematic stuff about black people. Absolutely. He was racist. He was he was a suspected white supremacist. Really, to be honest, he was a confirmed white supremacist. I mean, he said a lot of things. He said a lot of racist things about us. And that's why I said it's not polarizing. It's not misunderstood. It's not like confusing. And it's not even like just super shocking even. It's totally racist. It was hateful. It was disrespectful to our community, and it was unacceptable. And there's no argument about the shit. That's really what it kind of comes down to. Is his problematicness was that his ass was a damn racist. So going back to this whole mocking thing and this free speech thing, let's even just talk about Charlie Kirk. Let's talk about Charlie Kirk. We can, people can't go around, they can't mock him, they can't celebrate his death or whatever the case is, but Charlie Kirk can mock George Floyd's death. He can go around and he can say all the stuff that he said about him. He can go around, he can talk badly about black people after they get knocked off by a bunch of race soldiers, like a bunch of police officers. Like they can make jokes, or they can justify the killing. They can go around, they can mock that, and then all of a sudden that's okay. Because Charlie Kirk did all that shit. He didn't just do it with George Floyd. He did with Breonna Taylor, Tyree Nichols. I mean, I could just keep going. Trayvon Martin. He was mimicking all these people. You have not watched the videos. I have not watched what videos? You don't know what the hell I watched, but you can get up out to my chat talking about what I haven't watched. So we gonna get you the hell up out of here. Go ahead and have you a late night mayonnaise sandwich and get up out my chat. Anyway, going back. So, nobody got time for all that justification shit. Going back to what I was saying. So, salute. What's going on, Goat James? But anyway, yeah. No, we not about to be entertaining no damn white supremacists in the chat. If you don't go somewhere and keep picking the headlights up out your while you at your trailer park, ain't nobody trying to listen to you. So anyway, going back to what I was saying. So, to me, there's a lot of hypocrisy, right, around the things that are going on with this whole free speech thing. The problem is, when it comes to free speech, it's kind of policed in a hypocritical way, and that's an act of racism itself, and that's what people need to understand. It's the thing is that you can't let Charlie Kirk go around, mock black people, say all these racist things, say all these disrespectful things about our community, and then police black people for reacting to his death because they're angry at the things that he chose to do, that he was able to get away with, that he was able to create, more wealth from, because this was already a very privileged and rich man. This is somebody who came from, some parents who had a bunch of money, and he just got more of it from spewing his views and creating a platform from it. So black people have the right to be angry about, somebody who was racist and openly expressing it, being able to create a brand from it, and then getting rich from it, and then, being able to express themselves. So it's like you're policing the black people for mocking a racist, but not policing the racist who was being racist in that moment. So that's why I said there's major hypocrisy around this whole free speech shit. And now it's getting so hypocritical. They're starting to kind of put like real consequences around you reacting, which is just bullshit. Had to come through for this one. I'm glad you came through, Giovanni. So anyway, now let's talk about this myth of damn proper context, because that's one thing that I've been seeing. There was this dude who was on Instagram, right? And he's a dude, he used to follow my content. He stopped following because I guess he didn't like the shit I was saying. I mean, I think that it's a thing of, he had too many of them damn butter biscuits, and he just couldn't take the fact that I was opening people's eyes. And this fool came on my post when I was talking about Charlie Kirk. And he said that, because I talked about the whole thing about what he said about empathy. And he said that I took it out of context. Now I see a lot of this, take it out of context, miss the context. I see all this shit going on all the time. That's a bullshit ass talking point. So here's the thing. When somebody goes and they say that I missed the context whenever I, talk about the whole he didn't believe in empathy thing, the context that they're adding literally is that what he was saying is that it's not that he didn't value empathy, he valued sympathy. So let's talk about that for a second. When has Charlie Kirk ever had empathy, sympathy, or even compassion, even pity? When has he had any of these things for black people? I'll wait, because can't nobody tell me. The point with that is, if he hasn't had any of those things, what is the point of making the point about context? That context would not add any value or any new perspective that would change what I had originally said. He didn't have empathy, and it showed. And for someone to go back and say, well, he meant he didn't have sympathy. He didn't have that shit either. So what the fuck do you mean? You took it out of context. No, I ain't taking it out of no damn context. The context, matter of fact, the context doesn't even fucking matter. It doesn't matter. So it just frustrates me when people try to use that whole, the myth of proper, the context, my ass. The context doesn't fucking matter. And the context doesn't matter because it doesn't change the fact that he didn't have that or the things you're saying that are missing from the conversation. There's no context that can explain away that damn racism. That's why I said, fuck the damn context. The reality is that everything that he said, no matter what context that you put it in, was racist. Everything he said about black people, no matter what context you put it in, is 100% racist, and there's no question about it. Talking about some damn context. Context my nuts. Anyway. But going back though, yeah, the thing is that a lot of people will start making that argument because they really don't have anything to stand on. So they start using this thing that we call red herrings. So for those of you all who do not know what a red herring is, a red herring is when it's like a debate fallacy where somebody basically tries to deviate to something else, although you're talking about a particular topic or instance or how it relates to whatever you're trying to say. So for example, um, if I'm saying that, you know, um, like I'm at the grocery store and I wanted to get some broccoli, but the broccoli that I'm about to get, is too expensive. A red herring be somebody come back and say, well, then just get carrots then. Just get carrots then. If it's too high, get carrots. What the fuck does the damn carrots have to do with the fact that I want my damn broccoli? It has nothing to do with the shit. That's a red herring because you're bringing up some shit to try to deflect back to that so that I'm not talking about or complaining about the original point. You're trying to counter the point by bringing up something else. What the fuck does a carrot have to do with the damn broccoli if that's what I'm talking about in the first damn place? So that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to deflect to some shit that has nothing to do with what you're saying in order to disagree with it. So they try to go off of something else. Well, you're stating that as if it's a fact, but you took it out of context. But the context doesn't have shit to do with the fucking point that I said in the fucking beginning. Anyway, so Charlie Kirk, he was like I said, he even would not only was he trying to intellectualize his white supremacy, he also was trying to create foundations around it as well too. And that's what he had with that turning point shit that he had as well too, which was like a conservative youth movement to fight wokeness or some shit. That's kind of like what that was about. But the thing is that there's a lot of ways, because a lot of people are like, well, Turning Point was just a group he started for conservatism. But I'm like, no, this was literally an incubator for white supremacy. I mean, literally, we can go through some of the things that Turning Point has basically did. I mean, the founder literally repeatedly claimed that systemic racism does not exist in modern America. And he said America is not a racist country, and he dismissed discussions of white privilege even. They've also had it where a lot of these Turning Point folks have spread the great replacement theory, which is a white nationalist conspiracy theory. And then they also talk about how diversity is anti-white and all this other shit. They also have like a lot of these speakers and people like that who are also suspected white supremacists as well. That's why you have Nick Fuentes, who's associated with them as well too. And then also too, you also had like in some internal shit, like there was some stuff where people who are within Turning Point were talking about the racism. Like, for example, there was a black employee, and her name is Crystal Clanton, and she basically was accused of I guess sending a text message saying I hate black people, like fuck them all, I hate black. So that type of shit was going on as well too. And then she was like, she denied it, but was fired and whatnot. So there was that shit going on. They also would just talk about how they talked about BLM protests being violent and extreme. They made memes and things like that. A lot of people were part of that, mocking like George Floyd and all this other stuff. So yeah, they were on that racist shit for sure. They were for sure on that racist shit. Let's see here. So that's why he had that group to fight wokeness. What the fuck? Exactly. It's some bullshit, dude. It's some bullshit. And that's why I say, like, not only was he trying to intellectualize his racism, he was trying to create foundations. He was trying to create groups that taught people to think in this way, either in an internalized way or just to have a white supremacist breeding ground, like I said. And they try to make it seem like he was some type of freedom fighter, like he was this like patriot who had a legacy of doing some constructive shit. And literally all he did was mock civil rights leaders, undermine black struggles, and he sided with systems that just oppress black people. And that's really just what it was. Yet he's treated like a national treasure. And meanwhile, a lot of black heroes are like real black heroes are either demonized, their narratives are changed, they're co-opted, ignored. or they just try to do something janky with their legacy. There's a reason why we don't have a Malcolm X Day. You know what I mean? There's a reason why we don't see that. So you can definitely tell that this was, again, an agenda to try to create a hero out of a racist because they don't have real heroes for real. And also at the same time demonizing Black people, even if they're constructive. So I think the thing that we need to ask ourselves is, why is this a legacy that they want to protect, and and who benefits, when this does happen? Because the reality is that, this is truly their way of trying to create heroes, and then by taking racists and lying about who they were. Again, you have to understand that in the dominant society, they like to state lies and then do it over and over again in repetition. They like to say the same shit over and over again like a damn parrot. And then they like to make it seem like that person who they're uplifting, who they're talking about, they were basically a golden child. They were somebody who could do no wrong. They were somebody who did great things for America. But when you look back at him, I mean, what the fuck are you going to say that he did? He talked about Black on Black crime and Black fatherlessness. Ooh, he did so many great things. That's why I like the fact that a lot of us are on code, because a lot of us are going back and just shutting that shit the fuck down. So I'm glad that a lot of us are here talking about this type of thing, because what's not acceptable is to go around and act like, these people who were just vile white supremacists were actually heroes. And that's something that's happened in the past as well, too. That's why, you go to school, you learn about all these presidents and all these other, leaders and things like that. And they leave out the parts that, these people had slaves and all this other shit. That's why a lot of people are still hailing Abraham Lincoln's ass as a damn hero who freed Black people, when this was somebody who literally had slaves himself. So they try to leave that shit out of history because they don't want the dominant society does not want all of society to know that they have a degenerate culture of a bunch of racists whose legacies they have to change in order to not seem like the degenerates that they actually are. That's just really what it is. Hey, bro, but do you still think it's more to this shit than what's been put out? I mean, in what way are you suggesting? I'm kind of curious as to where you're going with this, because to me, I think that it was laid on the table pretty well. The only thing that really is that mystery is the stuff with the shooter. That's kind of questionable. What kind of went on there? All we know is that he was white. You know what I mean? He was a white supremacist, or I'll say at least he was white. He's a suspected white supremacist based off of the stuff that we've seen. I think some of that stuff might be a little bit questionable. I think that everything else is pretty much laid out in front of us. It's pretty blatant. I don't think that there's any other real things outside of them trying to legitimize white supremacy. That might be the actual agenda itself. And that's the reason why I'm having this space right now, is because I think that's the thing that most people are not really talking about like that. So Charlie wasn't no saint. He was a buster. Malcolm X and Bobby Seale were the real heroes. Absolutely. I agree 100%. He didn't do shit. Like I said, he was a glorified podcaster. He was somebody who sat around and said bad shit about us, and then they tried to put him up on a pedestal for the shit. That's really what it kind of came down to. I mean, he really didn't do anything that actually was constructive. And everything he did was just spew a bunch of damn hate. And there's really not any, and no matter how much I look at it, there's no good talking points that can justify what he's done. And a lot of these suspected white supremacists who are defending him, a lot of them are people who they see themselves in Charlie Kirk. They've said some of the things and believe some of the things that Charlie Kirk has said, right? So there's a lot of them who, they want to say those things or have said those things. So whenever people are going around, celebrating and whatnot, and they're mad about it, they see themselves in him, because they're like, what if that was me? They would laugh at me because I know that my mayonnaise eating ass does this shit. That's really what it is. That's why a lot of them are really getting bent up out of shape. Because notice a lot of the people who really got all pissy and fucked up and started babbling and not knowing what to say and having random amnesia and all this other shit. Notice that it's a lot of those white moderates. Like for some reason, the white moderates were really, really getting up in arms about the whole Charlie Kirk thing. The only other people who really were like going in real heavy outside of that were a lot of these Sambos, you know, because you even had Candace Owens' old mammy ass like sitting around like having a nervous breakdown. She was sitting there doing that little slide down the wall and shit with Charlie Kirk's ass had got taken out. She was sitting there. That was her dog. Like in her mind, she believes that was her very best damn friend. And I'm sitting there like Candace Owens is the biggest mammy ever. Like, and she literally like is a puppet for the right-wing white supremacists to the true T. So for her to like, you know, get on and do that, and you know, like just a year ago, she was trying to have her little fake pro-black turn. I don't know if y'all remember that. She's going on the Breakfast Club talking about God is good, amen, and all this other shit. Like, you know, she's just an opportunist who is willing to be a mammy for the coin. That's really what it kind of comes down to. With that guy that shot him and some other stuff they're throwing out there from conspiracy theories. What are some of the other conspiracy theories that you know you're hearing besides that? But yeah, there's some stuff around like the shooter that kind of is strange that I will admit, like I do question. But I think that from what we saw, I think it's my understanding is that there was somewhat of an inner, you know, suspected white supremacist beef. It's a thing where, you know, suspected white supremacists, you know, picked off another suspected white supremacist, you know, and it was kind of, you know, in that type of territory. And that doesn't surprise me. You have to understand that these white supremacists, they work together, but they also will work against each other to, you know, serve their own means and serve their own purpose. Some people believe that what happened was some type of government thing. But again, Charlie Kirk is not no like martyr who did something spectacular. You know what I mean? So, I mean, what would be the big benefit in basically taking this fool out? You know, like from a governmental standpoint, it's one thing if it was like black people and they were angry about what he did, which that's just not in our nature. That's why we didn't even do this shit. But my point is that, you know, what would they gain from taking him out? Because all he was doing was spewing the things that they would like to hear about our community. So I don't really see too much of anything that would be beneficial that the government would really do that would benefit them. I mean, their whole purpose is to make negative rhetoric about our community and whatnot. So I don't, because think about it, the government is full of white supremacists. I mean, they are like one of the biggest white supremacists, and you know it because these motherfuckers have yet to give us our reparations when we definitely need them to just cough the money up. Let's see. You have Black MAGA and the fake Black pretendians claiming they're indigenous to America. Brandon Tatum too. You said black. Okay, so I want to unpack that. The part where you said the fake Black pretendians claiming they're indigenous to America. I need you to kind of elaborate on that comment. That comment is kind of weird. You said Black pretendians claiming they're indigenous to America. Are you speaking about foundational Black Americans? Because if you are, foundational Black Americans are indigenous to America. I mean, that's just really what it is. They built America through slave labor, and as a result, that is their home. That is our home. So I don't know what you mean by that. I need you to clear that up. But Brandon Tatum is a Sambo. He is a straight Sambo who is trying to create some type of legacy from his Samboism, you know. But really, what a lot of these like Sambos don't understand, these tethers, is that, you know, they're just tools of white supremacy. And when they're done, they break their tools. That the bullet didn't go through him. And it's been said that it was people standing behind him and trying to see why the bullet didn't go through. And Candace was saying it was a setup, LOL. I don't listen to shit Candace Owens said. Candace Owens, again, is a complete tether mammy. I mean, she is somebody who literally like wanted to spew anti-Black hate on behalf of the right-wing white supremacists for the coin. I don't listen to shit that she says, because right now she's defending a racist because that was her quote unquote homie. So I don't listen to none of that little bit when she says. I'm just gonna be totally honest with you. I have no respect for Candace Owens, none at all. And I don't want to hear shit that she's saying about her conspiracy or none of that other stuff. She can go somewhere and go kick it with her zaddy and stop talking about, what was going on with their community, and they don't give a fuck about her. And they didn't, because when she was on that platform, they tossed her right the hell out when she started talking about the Jews. They don't care about her ass. That's why I said, like, she's doing all that man-meing for the coin. I don't have none positive to say about Candace Owens. So, yeah. Not trying to troll, but Jeff Hardy and Lil Uzi Vert got more impact on people life than Charlie Kirk. hey, but you're not wrong though. You're not wrong. He said Lil Uzi Vert. That's the most random shit, y'all. My man said Lil Uzi Vert. Hell no. But anyway, going back though, yeah, it's just, to me, the whole thing with Charlie Kirk is they're just trying to take someone who really was a nobody and trying to make it seem like they were somebody who was significant and great. And that's why I led in the beginning of this conversation. I said he wasn't a politician, he wasn't a lawmaker, he wasn't a lawyer, he wasn't a judge, he wasn't anybody who was really significant. He was just a glorified podcaster who got big because, he already had like the money and the people who already were backing him to do the stuff that he was doing. But outside of that, he really didn't do anything significant besides run his damn mouth. That's really it. But it's going to be interesting. I don't know what you're trying to say there, WEA. I don't know. Were you trying to say where? It's going to be interesting where this goes, because old boy haven't said he didn't do it yet. Yeah, I'm curious as to where it's going to go as well too. But again, if I had to put my money on what I think happened, I think what we saw is probably what happened. There was a suspected white supremacist. There was some type of inner white supremacist beef. It could be a dude who wasn't really rocking with Charlie Kirk. And some of these suspected white supremacists, they aren't loyal to each other. Hell, there was one dude, if y'all ever go on Tariq's platform, and he's like a white supremacist who will commonly come on there. And he said that when he saw the Charlie Kirk death, he busted out laughing. He was just laughing hysterically. So these white supremacists don't give a fuck about each other. That's my point. So, excuse me. With that being said, I think that it's just the inner white supremacist beef, and they took each other out, and it's a testament to what is actually happening in their culture. And it was something that was very poetic. It was something that happened because it's like, DT talked all that shit, about black people and whatnot. And what ended up happening to him, he ends up getting taken out by his community with all the shit that he done accused, us about and whatnot. Charlie Kirk was a nobody. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard anybody. Nah, I don't know what you're saying, but we gonna get you up out of here. I don't want to hear shit you got to say. Yeah, the only clown is the one at the trailer park typing on this damn comment section, thinking that they're saying something witty. Ain't nobody got time for all that. So we gonna get you the hell up out of here. Anyway, so going back to what I was saying. So yeah, man, I don't know. I think that what happened is what we saw is what happened. Now, people have their theories and whatnot. The worst or the most different than them can be is probably the one about like what happened with the shooter. But outside of that, I just think I think what we saw is what happened. I'm gonna be honest with you. So, but yeah, that's all I got for this topic, y'all. I just wanted to make sure that I came on here and kind of expressed a few more of my thoughts on this, because I like I said, I did a video where I talked about Charlie Kirk and kind of what was my take on it and how I felt about it, between the celebration, between the death itself, and the irony of it and whatnot. But I wanted to also just do a video where I flushed out a few more things and updates of kind of what I've been seeing and have been hearing transpire around this whole thing. And to me, like I said, it's a thing where I don't think anybody was wishing for his death, right? But when it happened, we said, oh, well, that's ironic because you said all this shit about us, and look at the way you died. I mean, he died practicing damn white supremacy. I mean, this dude literally was about to say some shit about our community, or at least imply it. and he got taken out while doing it. That is the craziest shit to me. Like that had to be the most like a wow, like what a damn coincidence thing to just ever happen. And I truly, like I said, I typically don't believe in coincidences. I just think that what happened was very poetic. Utter gang violence. Yeah, those thugs. That's all you got to say. They ain't nothing but thugs. That is all that we got to say about that. So, but yeah, y'all. So that's what I got. When it comes to this topic, I'm definitely gonna have another video coming soon. That one of the videos that I want to do soon is on the yo homie yo trope. I put that on there because I kind of been noticing some things about the white supremacists who fall into that category that I wanted to kind of talk about and flush out. And recently on social media, I did a post about the 8 Mile movie, and I talked about how the hidden message in the 8 Mile movie that most of us missed was that they were anti-gatekeeping. They were trying to demonize the fact that Black people were gatekeeping hip hop culture. That's really what it was about. And a lot of people had a lot of comments on it. So I wanted to kind of dig a little bit deeper into that. And I've been seeing a few things that I kind of wanted to talk about just around that trope, just a few patterns I kind of noticed that I didn't talk about before, because there's something very interesting that I see with this type of trope, like the way it develops and the way that it all flushes out. So a lot of people seem to also think that same thing. So I wanted to make a video on it, and I plan to. Suspected white supremacists be low-key shady, be trying to discredit Black heroes, demonizing them. But our ancestors fight back, and our strong spirits and our presence scares them too. Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. So a lot of them, they try to do revisionist history. They try to take their degenerates and turn them into heroes, and take our heroes and try to either erase them, turn them into degenerates, or try to just repackage whatever it is that they did or said or who they were. So they love to do that. And they do that with a lot of different things too, not just people. They also like to do that with inventions. Like that's why you have this little intellectual property hustle going on, where a lot of them will try to act like, they invented this and that, when there's a lot of things that we actually invented, and things that we did for society, so that's one of the things that I've been kind of noticing too, is that they discredit Black heroes and they lift up their degenerates at the same time. So they try to make it seem like there's so many heroes within their society and there's a lot of degenerates within ours. Like these motherfuckers think that every white person is damn Chuck Norris. Like that's just like their dude. Oh, we got a suspected white supremacist in here. No. You white supremacists are the ones who kind of look like monkeys. So let's be clear about that. But anyway, going back. So as I was saying, so to me, the video that I will be putting out, I want to do it by Friday, but I'm already doing this live. I don't want to do too much, so I'm potentially going to try to put it out on Friday, but if it comes out another day, I'll let y'all know, that as well, because to me, I just there's a lot of videos that I'm gonna need to get out there. That one was, like I said, close to this one when y'all were voting on these topics. So I don't want to overload myself, but at the same time, I think that video probably should come out. But in the meantime, if you guys have post requests, I'm going to be slowly doing those as well. So feel free to send me them. If you follow me on Instagram, you can DM me and shoot me a message about what you would like to hear about. Or like if we're ever in these chats, you can do that as well too. You can, send whatever it is that you would like for me to talk about. And yeah, we can go from there, y'all. But anyway, I'm going to get up out of here. I got a few things that I need to do. I just wanted to, again, come on and talk about this for a little bit. I appreciate all y'all who came through and talked with me for a little bit on this topic and kind of gave your 2 cents and kind of brought up a few things. Like I know there are a few of y'all, like Goat James, he brought up some things that actually were kind of interesting, like the conspiracy theories that are out there and whatnot. So I appreciate you and everybody else who came through and contributed to the conversation tonight. I think it was very productive. I think we got out the things that a lot of us were thinking about and the things that really needed to be said about this. But anyway, y'all, I hope y'all have a good rest of y'all's night. I'm going to get up out of here and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace out.